Good afternoon. Call this Leon County School meeting to order. We're meeting at the Acalina Howard Center on 3955 West Pensacola Street. Opening items 1.01, Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, Ingrid, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ingrid, and I'm from Hartsfield Elementary, and I am in grade 4.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
That was awesome, Ingrid. Awesome.
Fantastic. Great job. Two, changes in addition. Mrs. Woods.
Okay. I'd like to read the changes and additions into the agenda. The superintendent recommends approval of changes and additions to the August 27th, 2018 school board meeting as presented. Add 5.03, Title I Advisory Council. Add 5.05, Community Partnership School. Add 5.06, School and Event Safety Updates. Add 24.01, Purpose-Built Schools, Roseanne Wood, Board Member. Add item 1906, 2018-19 contract between the School Board of Leon County and Pace Center for Girls, Leon. There was a delay in the approval process, which resulted in the item being moved from August 27th, 2018 school board meeting. The approval process is complete, therefore it is moved back to this meeting. Item 7.03, approval of personnel actions, replaced documentations.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Boyne.
I move the acceptance of the changes and additions as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Boyne, second by Ms. Woods. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes 3-0.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, recognitions. We have none to date. Superintendent Spotlight.
None today, Madam Chair.
Supposed to be heard. 5.01, District Advisory Council, none to date. 5.02, Student District Advisory Council, none to date. 5.03, Title I Advisory Council. Ms. Marie Clary Letterman and Jacqueline Scott.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
This is, well, you know me, I'm Marie Claire.
Yes.
And I'm the vice chair of the Title I Advisory Council this year. And this is Miss Scott, Jacqueline Scott.
Oh, thank
who's
you.
a teacher at Oak Ridge.
Oh.
And Miss Scott is the secretary. Before I let her take over the report tonight, I just wanted to let you know that the chair, vice chair, and secretary this year are going to be working as a team so that when one of us can't be here or at a Title I Advisory Council meeting, that we're interchangeable in our roles. And so if one of us can't be there, the other one can take notes, take minutes, the other one can chair, and we're really going to be working as a team for this this coming school year. So you won't always see me here anymore, which is exciting, probably.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Train the trainer. All right, very
yeah,
good.
there we go.
Okay. I'm Jacqueline Scott, and I'm serving as the secretary for the Title I Advisory Council for the 18-19 school year. So we started with our welcome and introductions, and it was to reintroduce ourselves as a committee to each other and welcome new members. We talked about the purpose of TAC and our way of work. Then we had a welcome from the principal, Principal Norton. And we talked about what we plan to do as a committee. We had some information and input from our Title I person, Ms. Scott, other Ms. Scott. And then we met in our task forces, and we reintroduced ourselves as different task forces and what we plan to do for the 18-19 school year and how we plan to better help our Title I schools and how we can work with district and the Title I office to help us.
And I'm just going to remind you of our different task forces because I think it'll give you a preview of the content that you're going to hear from us month to month. So these task forces meet at every meeting, and they work on their objectives at every meeting. And they also have the possibility of working between meetings because they keep minutes and resources of their conversations on a shared document that they can update and work on in between meetings. And so we're hoping that that keeps them well connected between meetings, but also serves the purpose of integrating a new member to the task force very easily who can just catch up before being at a meeting. So our task forces are best practices at Title I schools. This is going to be to look at what Title I schools in other counties that have perhaps gotten A's and B's have, how have they achieved that? What's their secret sauce? And we want to learn from them. We're going to be looking at how our schools in Leon County have over the years resegregated and what can we do about it? What might be the causes of that? And how can we, I know that Ms. Wood has a proposal that she presented to you at the last school board meeting that will probably go a long ways in combining with our efforts as far as how to attract our kids back to our public schools, basically, where that's not happening yet. Early childhood education is another one of our task forces. Supporting our principals, our SACs, our PTOs, that's one task force as well. And partnering with local providers. We know that Tallahassee is rich in organizations that can provide to our schools, but we need to find better ways to better integrate them into our schools in some cases. In some cases, it's already working beautifully. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Really understanding our Title I grant. So we have a task force that's excuse me, focused on that in particular because we don't want recommendations from other task forces to end up being recommendations that can't be implemented because they're not viable under the Title I grant rules. And so we want our committee as a whole to really be up on those rules. And Miss Ashley Scott, so we have a lot of Miss Scotts on our committee. It's very confusing. And I try not to call people by their first names out of respect, but I think it'll break down at some point. So Ms. Ashley Scott has been very, very supportive of the TAC, but also of this particular task force, since, of course, she's the brains behind the whole operation. And then the 7th task force is mental and physical health of not only the kids in Title I schools, but the communities, the families that have children attending Title I schools. I just wanted to mention 2 quick things. At this meeting, we had quorum in a big way. We had 50 people present. It was awesome. The principals came out in large numbers, and especially if they didn't yet, it's an early meeting in the year, they didn't all yet have a SAC representative because their SACs hadn't met yet, and so they came instead. So they just came themselves and participated, and it was really great. And it was really great for them to be there at that first meeting so that they really understand, because we're still new, so that they really understand what the TAC is hoping to accomplish and how they can be supportive of it from their own schools. And so how we can be supportive of them, we will be more supportive of them or more effective in being supportive of them if they know what we are trying to accomplish. Sorry for the minutes, because this is not even a sentence, but anyway. And then we therefore had quorum, which I was really surprised, because the first meeting like that, second week of school, I didn't expect it. We were able to elect the new chair, vice chair, and secretary. We had planned to do a bylaw revision, but we wanted to move a little bit more substantively onto our task forces, and we postponed the bylaw revision for the second meeting so that everyone will have had a chance to kind of look at the kinds of changes we're trying to bring to our bylaws. Do you want to add anything to that?
You did a good job.
Our next meeting is at Riley Elementary on September 10th, and actually really excited about working with Miss Scott. Well, I'm really excited to work with this Miss Scott, but really excited to work with Miss Ashley Scott, who is a super good counterpart to us parents and teachers who can't be doing this all day long. Because she is, and I don't know if she's here, but she's been really good about the planning side of things. So we already know where all our meetings are going to be this year. It's all set. It's been communicated to everyone who needs to know. The principals know when they're hosting us. And that not only is great for the members and great for the principals, but it really is great for the organizing, because we don't revisit that every month. It's easy to communicate to people. I really appreciate her being on top of things like that. It's hugely helpful. And yes, so our next meeting, and you are all always, each of you is always welcome to be there. I think I've communicated with each of you as far as your representative to the TAC is concerned, and so if it's not set in stone yet, we'll keep working on that. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. Last year, we talked about really making sure there's a full presence on the website for Title I, and that there's a link to your meeting notes and to your objectives and to your report from last year. I'm wondering if we've gotten that going yet.
No, completely my fault. Not completely going.
Completely your fault. We're all in this together. So
well, the template is there. So we have the page. We have the minutes from last year, the agendas from last year, the locations for this year. What we're missing are the report. We don't have a link to the report, so that's a good point. And we are missing the membership list, which it's a bit tricky because it's not completely set yet.
okay. Well, I was really just asking if you need support from the district.
No, they just need me to cooperate.
Oh, well, that's always a big problem with you, Mary Claire, so I'm worried about that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Just
no,
wanted an update.
we want to do it, and they are very cooperative
Great.
with me. Whenever I send something, it gets uploaded. So
Perfect.
the ball's in my court.
Thank you.
Ms. Boyd?
Thank you. My question was similar. I was going to ask how the community was going to be made aware, particularly those dinosaurs, and I should not call anybody that except myself, who may not have access to computers and instant information systems. Is this an opportunity to send old-fashioned notes home to students? Does that happen anymore, so that more members of the community can be involved of this
Yeah.
entity? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, go ahead.
Schools have newsletters
Yeah.
that go out
Yes.
at the beginning of the month, and we can probably add them to the
Okay.
newsletters if
I think
the
that-
dates are
that-
already on the calendar.
That would be great, because I think a lot of parents would look, where's that newsletter? Let me see that. Great. Thank you for what you do.
explanation of who.
Yes.
I think that one of the ways that we want the TAC to be supportive of the SACs is to really empower that parent who's representing their school SAC to go back to their SAC and say, you know, I just found out these are all the meetings this year of the Title I Advisory Council. How can we make sure that our community knows these dates and that they're communicated? Some schools already put them up on their calendar. Some schools may be not as aware of it because the broken link between us and their SAC.
Okay, very good. The listserv could be another way. The listserv, all schools have listservs.
Yeah.
And that could be another way of communicating to the parents. But as our board member Bowen stated about those who don't have computers, you know.
Right.
And so you said the newsletter would be, right, okay. Right. So it's, did you finish?
Yes, I did. I just needed that little piece in there.
Yeah, I was going to compliment you on the task force because that's what we have at the district level for the critical schools. We have a task force that's going out, collaborating, communicating, collecting data with all our schools that are, I want to call them schools that we're focusing more on to get their grades up. So this task force that you have, the different ones, but once you get it organized, then as Board Member Wood stated, then anybody could go and see what task force is being represented because you have different function for each task force, and that's very good. So we can understand, and we may have, once we get more of the community and more parents involved, they can be a part of the task force because there may be some task force that other in the community might like to be a member of.
Right. And to add to that, Ms. Lewis Butler, the goal of these Google documents, this is not great for those who don't have computers, but for those who are going to be going on the Title I Advisory Council page, we are hoping that we can have links to the task force document that says what the task force is working on. And that's going to be a living document. They won't be able to edit it unless they're members of the task force, but they'll be able to view it. And so that way, if someone wants to be a contributing member to the Title I Advisory Council and is interested in a task force and wants to know what its take is on that issue, the person can go and read and decide if that is something they want to work on. We haven't done it yet, and it's something that we'll develop with Ms. Scott in the Title I office to make sure that that's, okay with them. But we want to be really transparent and to make it as easy as possible for people who join the Title I Advisory Council to contribute right away and to not feel like an outsider. So far, the people who show up feel that way, but you don't want it to be difficult for someone to come midway through the year.
And not know
And
what
not
you've been talking
know.
about.
Right.
Oh, this is awesome and fantastic. Good job. Any other comments? And welcome, Ms. Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
ladies.
5.04, Leon County School Focus Parents Portal. All right.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board
evening,
members, Superintendent Hannah. It is my pleasure this evening to bring forward to you two critical members of our TIS team, Mr. Bill Nimmons, Director of TIS, and Missy Atkinson, who's Project Manager. As you are aware, under your leadership over the last 2 years, we have been in the process of moving away from our old student information system, Genesis, into a new student information system, Focus. And that student information system is responsible for the heavy lifting of the work that our schools do in terms of management. So when we think about SIS, we think about things like school schedules, we think about things like teacher schedules, we think about things like bell schedules, and we also address things like immunization, student demographic information, changes of address, ESC status, accommodations, ELL status, all things in and around students and their educational experience as they engage with their schools. So about 2 years ago, we purchased Focus. We have been in the launch phase for 18 months. With the start of school, it officially went live, and I am happy to report, on knocking on fake wood, that it has gone reasonably well. Is it perfect? No. I mean, there are always bumps in the road when you're making significant changes, right? And so at the end of the school year, our schools were using Genesis and taking attendance, right? And we turn the switch off, and then when they come back in August, we flip the switch and they're doing something that looks different. The logic is extremely different in terms of this is web-based. They can even make their own colors if they want, but that really tracks student information in a different way. And so this project has been led tirelessly by Missy Atkinson. I'm going to ask Missy to come up and if you want to load. Missy Atkinson, when I say tirelessly, we're talking 5 a.m., 6 a.m., working weekends. I probably think that she maybe 40 days without a day off. We have been behind the scenes doing the heavy lift, trying to meet all of our schools' needs, trying to meet all of our students' needs, and making sure that the information is accurate and integrated in a meaningful way. But we're not done. Today is an important day. Today is the day that we launch the parent portal. And what the parent portal is when the parents are able to engage with this platform. So this afternoon, letters went home to provide parents username and access information for Parent Portal. We have a 3-step security process. 2 of those steps will be on the page. The 3rd step, a parent is required to know and put in so that we have the highest level of security possible, so that, for example, in my child's instance, that not anybody off the street could go in. That even if she lost the piece of paper that had her credentials on it and it wasn't in her folder, that there's a 3rd piece of identifying information that is required. And then as a parent, they're able to go into the system, check their students' attendance, grades, modify demographic information like addresses that would ping the school to check on things, as well as be downloaded onto my smartphone and be used as an app. And so that we provide not only students an ability to interface with this, and they will have that ability as well as a student to log into their own accounts for secondary students, but also parents. It's in a way to enhance communication between home and school. And so we've asked Ms. Atkinson to come before you today just to give you a quick 60,000-foot view of what the parents can expect to see for the Parent Portal side.
Hi, I'm not going to use the microphone because I need to be over here.
Okay. I can drive for you.
Well, I'm good. So with the portal, the letters did go home today, and each student should be receiving a letter with the pieces of information that they need on the system, and they will be required to log into a web browser. It doesn't matter if it's the web browser on their smartphone or if it's the web browser on a computer. So you're not limited to having a computer. Everybody shops on their phone, everybody Googles on their phone, everybody uses their phone in order to do that. And many of the other counties that also are using it in counties where large percentages of people don't even have a computer and are able to do it. So what you see up on the screen is the portal page. And the portal page looks very similar for students, for parents, for teachers, for administrators, for even those people that have the district view to the portal itself. So when I look or take a look at the portal, it's going to have, this is a parent, Dawn, who's one of the people that's worked with us on the project in TIS. There's a lot of people who have put in lots and lots of hours to do this as well. And his son, Chase Russell, goes to Hawks Rise. So this would be what you would see on the portal or the browser version of the portal. If you had multiple children, you would click here, and all of your children would be linked to one account. So no longer do you have multiple accounts for one account for each of your children. You register an account, and then you add your children to you in the system. So they see portal alerts, and it says you've not set up your email notifications yet, so they would click there to do that. They would see their child's schedule. Here is the child's schedule, quick view of the student's grades. They can click on it and get straight to the gradebook grades. You know, we're only in the 2nd week of school, 3rd week, 1 day into school, so not a lot of, he's in 1st grade. Not a lot of grades completely done yet. You also can get information about my child, look at their current schedule, look at their grades, their course history, their GPA, graduation requirements, test history, attendance, see his attendance. You can change your preferences, and then here you get the assignments and the grades on the particular student. The portal itself gives you more information than on the app, because the app is just kind of a quick snapshot, into that student and what's going on. So if I go into the student here, I can see my address and my contacts. I can see any attendance notes. I can see their lunch pin. I can see their basic demographics and the permissions to different things. And I can see any letters that were sent home. Here's a message from Hawks Rise that was printed. This is the letter that went home. So everything is logged inside of the system that they can see. Same for report cards, same for anything like that. And all of that's available within the portal itself. I can go to grades and I can see the student's grades from any of the school years. Well, he's in first grade, so he doesn't have any yet, but I could see the information on that. The app itself, you have to first register on the website, and then you go into your smartphone using the information that for your account, your username and your password. And you'll have a picture of your child here. If you have multiple children, you click here and can change between the children. And you get a quick snapshot of what's going on for each 9 weeks during the school year and an overview of the entire year. You also have news. These are the assignments and things that the teachers have posted, as well as any Facebook or Twitter feeds from both the school that the child is at and from the district. So that's all available. You'll see a lot of these things. Up there we go, superintendent's referee during the Jamboree. And I'm also going to see some other information about that child's information. Then there's also a set of links where they can go into ClassLink. They can go to the lunch menus, get the LCS school website in the system. So I have all of that directly at my fingertips here. This would be the students. He got a grade today for all of these things in this week in class. And it will also give you any past due or future due assignments that the teacher has already put in to the system. And so the website gives you that quick instant overview to see. The app gives you the quick instant overview, whereas on the portal you get a little bit more detailed information within the system. So this is what's going home today. We've already had a bunch of calls in the help desk, and so we'll be working with it, and so hopefully the parents will get all those in.
Tell them what ClassLink is real quick.
ClassLink is our single sign-on system, so all of the things that the kids need to get into, every textbook, all of the programs that the children use are rostered through their schedules that they have, so that they don't have to know all of the passwords for my biology book, for my algebra book, for my history book. What do I need to go to get into my reading program? They log into ClassLink, click on it, and it takes them into whatever materials that they've been assigned based on their schedule, their grade level, and the school.
I have a question. Quick. Go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Bowen.
Will this link also be tied to what we're thinking about for our transportation system when kids enter the buses? No?
So over time, it is our intention to have integration, but not for the foreseeable future. We're thinking maybe 12 months. Yes, we're thinking this time, the launch of next school year, it will be fully integrated. But we're trying to chunk and have kind of benchmarks along the way. And the first was to get attendance, grade book, and communications going home effectively.
All right, okay. I think it's great.
Ms. Rasmussen?
When they, in the high school age group, will there be, you said something about graduation requirements. Is there a graduation tracker that will give
There's
warnings?
There's a graduation requirement report and has little green checks as you complete it. Everything towards your diploma, depending on which version of the diploma you're in. It'll also track all the requirements for Merit Scholar, Biliteracy, and all of their college readiness exams as well. And there's a middle school one as well that'll show them their requirements towards completing all of the requirements for all of the 4 different core areas. And then in elementary school, all of their 9 weeks grades will be visible within there for the history of the student, starting with the 17-18 grades.
What about dual enrollment?
Those, once they're posted to the student's record, they will appear as well.
If I may follow up just real quick. I know this is usually part of our contract with the unions, but what about, is there anything about how long, how soon they have to post grades?
So that's a good question. And first, I see some other people of this team. Brian Boyd's here. Bill Nimmons is here. This was a team lift, a team effort. This is my 31st year. This is only the third student information system we have. This doesn't happen very often. This is a big deal. And thank goodness they didn't have this when I was a student in Leon County Schools. Like my mom could monitor my attendance, me being tardy, my quiz grades, like in real time. Just, it is what it is, kids. Just roll with it. But it is a comprehensive way for parents to see every single thing that's going on in their child's life. Their tardy, their discipline, their attendance, quiz grades, and but yes, that's a good question. And no, do we have that X number of days the teachers have to update their grades? And no, I think that's part of negotiations with LCTA. So it's only as good. This is only as good as the information you put in it.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we can do the attendance and those things. I think the big thing is the grades, the assignments, and you're going to have some teachers, like my wife, that will tell you a year out what the assignments are, and they're graded immediately. And then you have others, maybe that not so much. So that would that's certainly a concern. But all in all, I'm excited about this program and what it's going to bring to our students in the coordination and communication between student, school, and home.
And I want to echo that. I'm very pleased. I'm not at all being critical. I think it's fantastic. And but I do have a child who he will check his grades every 10 minutes until the person has posted it. And the anxiety that goes with that is really, it's debilitating. So if we can think about this when we do negotiate the contract, and I'm not trying to be overly onerous on teachers either, but just some kind of a guideline that, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And the other thing that I've heard some feedback is it really puts a lot of pressure on our kids.
That's what I'm talking about, my kids.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that back in the day, if you had, you knew you had a bad test grade or a bad quiz grade, but before progress reports came out, you knew you better get your behind in gear because the progress report was the one that measured it. But now every single grade is under scrutiny.
Yeah.
So our kids are, I'm not sure, well, it is what it is. But, but I've heard you about our teachers and how they're grading but we can certainly have those discussions with them.
And actually, Madam Chair, this might be another opportunity, not that we need to find anything for our new mental health counselors to do, but I expect the kind of anxiety that this could create will probably necessitate our children talking with someone about these kinds of things, because Mama's going to know and Dad is going to know. And so I just put that out there so that there is enough work to go around, quite honestly. Okay. Great ideas.
Did you mention something about help desk?
We do it with the parent login. It is a lot easier now with it. They log in using an email address. We're producing a short instructional video that'll be out. How to go and get a free Gmail account or a Hotmail account. Then they register. If they forget their passwords, now they don't call the help desk to get them. There's a link directly there that says, please email me a new password, and it will do that. They can log in directly from there. The only thing that they have to have is that the two pieces of information that are on the letter, and then the piece of information that the parent has access to put in to register them. And then there will be some parents that will need to go to the schools to verify their identity because, like Superintendent said, the data in the system is only good as what we've put in there. So if the parent is listed incorrectly or something, they'll need to go to the school. But we do have some help desk that are helping with the parents walking through the registration, and that they need to get those pieces of information in order to link their kids to them.
Let me add something real quick. You can tell Missy does not need a microphone. She still has her teacher voice back when Missy was teaching science at Godby High School in the late 80s. That's when we first met. But it's also the conversation about all the forms and about having repeatedly, we're in the works, right, Brian? Of this will greatly help us in the future reduce the amount of paperwork for our parents as they're filling out forms.
If we look here, there are some of them included down here. So it's we have a tab where when we open it up for the parents to make changes. Right now we're just wanting them all to get in, and then we'll allow them to edit phone numbers and emails and request changes, because you can't just let you have to have proofs of residence for the address. So there will be permissions on there where they can click and read the student code of conduct and then acknowledge that they've read the code of conduct. There will be where they can click to say my child has permission to use the internet or does not have permission to use the internet, and to complete some of those things that normally go home. And a lot of the letters and things are all pre-populated with all of the students' information in the system. So if there is something that needs to be signed, like the consent form for field trips and things like that, because the doctors and things want an actual real piece of paper with a signature, that we can print those out so the parent doesn't have to spend as much time having to fill out. I had 3 kids in the system, and it took me a week to get addresses filled in. Finally learned to let them fill it out, and then I just sign it within that. But we do have some of those things going in within the system in order to do that information in there.
Good. Okay.
I'm happy to hear you say that, Missy, because I was dealing with an issue dealing with an insurance policy where everything was placed into the system, but there was a need for a real live signature, and that could not be obtained from that desk. And it really ran my family into some problems because there was no real signature on that form. Mm-hmm. So this is not going to be the case in that a family parent might need to sign something, and that's not going to cause a problem, and that
they just print the form.
They can
you just print the form
out and sign it.
And you will accept it. All right.
And then we also have some where they can, once we've gotten some of the things back, where the parent has signed a contract or some other things that can be uploaded into the system as a PDF. So
Great.
they will be in there. Yeah.
Great. No harm, no foul. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
One more point.
Oh.
Sorry. You remember a conversation we had a while back about the Code of Conduct book? And when we had so many instances where students were having weapons on campus, and we talked about pulling out some of the key pieces of that Code of Conduct book to call to their attention, maybe we could add here, click here to sign the Code of Conduct book, but maybe a separate little brief statement on things that are urgently and critically important that they have to separately click to sign, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think, this program has a lot of options to it, and if that's one of them, we can certainly explore that.
Okay.
We're like years ahead of where we started, and thank you so much. All of you have worked so hard on this, and all the paper that's going to be reduced is great, and the time for parents is going to be great. And I do hear what Rocky's saying about, Spygate, but the kids may not like it so much, but I hope our parents will understand that not every grade is the most important thing in the world, and people need to take everything in context so that there's not too much pressure put on our children, because that could be a problem. So, but it sure beats the old purple mimeograph machine that I used to do.
Oh, but those things smelled so funny.
Oh, they smelled good, but other than that, they were a pain.
Oh, wow.
I've been trying to get rid of those green forms since I first ran in 2008.
Yeah, so, yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you are, 10 years later, you did it.
I know. I can be done now.
That's great.
Okay. Good job. Good job.
Write it down. It could be forgotten.
Sorry, one more thing to add.
Yeah, just a minute. Just a minute, please. Okay. Now.
One more thing to add to your comment is we will be rolling out an online registration form. We have it ready, and we will have that available in the spring, so they can complete the green form online one, so we can actually read it in the system on the green form and facilitate the enrollment. So they'll register into an applicant school, and then once they go then to the school to actually give them their information, they would pick them up from inside that applicant school with the data already entered. And we couldn't do it this year because we didn't have parent accounts, but next year that will be there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. 5.05, Community Partnership School.
Yay.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and board members, Superintendent, of course. Just wanted to provide an update. It was a request to get an update on what's going on with our community partnership schools. So we'll start at the beginning. And this journey started a couple of years ago, and all of you have been instrumental in getting us where we are today. We're not completely there, but we are. I think you're going to be very pleased with the progress. All of you had the opportunity to take visits to community partnership schools, whether it was in Orlando or in Pensacola, and actually see it, feel it, touch it, talk to staff members, talk to each other about what you envision for our community partnership school. Had the opportunity to come back. Children's Home Society on Charles McDonnell has been very instrumental in working with the superintendent, all of you, Florida A&M University and FSU to get us to this point. You know, with community partnership schools, it takes 4 core partners, and those 4 core partners were just named. I'll name them again: with Children's Home Society, Florida State University with their College of Medicine, Florida A&M University, and we're going to be utilizing several of their academic colleges as we continue on this journey, and of course Leon County Schools. The community partnership school is in place. The beginning stages of it at Sable Palm Elementary School. And it is an honor, pleasure, and privilege to introduce the director who wakes up every morning with the community partnership school on her mind. That's Anna K. Hutchinson. So I'd like to introduce her.
I am honored to have this position. It's a brand new position for our area, and I am entering week 3 of this endeavor and getting to know Sable Palm. And I have to tell you that Principal Robinson and her staff have just welcomed me with open arms. They have already included me as part of their family. So I am just honored to be able to work with her. She is very calm, and you can tell she knows what she's doing. She's got it going on and for those kids. And so I'm just in the discovery phase right now, and we have a long way to go. But I have all the great support, and I'm looking forward to working with each of you, and the superintendent, and the other 2 core partners. Well, all the core partners together to lift up not just Sable Palm, but the community that it surrounds. So I'm sure I'll be reporting with you guys shortly. So
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
And I would add also, in addition to those partnerships, the City of Tallahassee and Leon County have pitched in to support us financially in the director's position and other costs associated. The Children's Home Society pitched in $25,000. We pitched in $25,000, the county, the city. So it is truly a community partnership. And,
Yes.
the clinic at Sable Palm, I believe, is already running or in the process
Not quite. Almost there.
We're in the process of opening up a pediatric clinic. In fact, Dr. Cox, members of Florida State, Anna Kay is going to join us for that meeting. We're working on the lease. It's going to be a pediatric clinic that only services the students of Sable Palm. So if I'm not a student there, I can't take advantage of that because it's on the campus. Meanwhile, down the street, they've already started breaking the ground, and will start construction of the main site, which will then be able to accommodate the needs of the community as a whole, because we do need a medical facility here.
All right, so we already have some doctors that are moving into Sable Palm that will serve the hundreds of students that go to school there, and then once they finish the facility on the corner, then it would serve the students as well as the community at large.
That is correct.
So it's very exciting.
It's very exciting. Ms. Bowen.
Are there other services? Our understanding, we visited, as you said, other schools outside of the county. What other services? The pediatric one is important, but I thought I remembered something like grocery services, or could you expound on that a little bit more,
Excellent
please?
point. And that's part of what we're going to get to next with the survey of the community. We need to do a needs assessment.
Okay.
If you recall, every community partnership school is a little bit different, wherein there are some needs for food, there are some needs, of course, for medical services, dental services, and things of that nature. So the next next step will be that needs assessment. But those things will come, and we look forward to coming back to the board to say, this is what the Sable Palm community as a whole said that they needed, and these are the partners that we're going to have to make sure that those things are in place.
And did I understand you to say that we're about 18 months out from that, or did I not hear a date and time?
I think so.
Maybe,
I'm
maybe
sorry.
10 months
Okay,
from
that's even better.
the
Okay.
10 to 12 months from that facility. I'd say
The
more
facility,
10.
Yeah.
More
But
10.
They're very
great.
ambitious. They think they're going to have their doors open in April.
I
So-
know, I heard.
Oh,
Yeah,
Raven.
yeah. So
Be wonderful.
the needs assessment we're hoping will happen within the next 6 months. That's our goal.
Good. All
And that will be FAMU. That's their core responsibility.
right.
So
Thank
very
you.
exciting stuff.
It is
How
exciting.
you plan to do your assessment?
The researchers that have
That's a great question.
Yeah, well, I was just wanting to know how, and I heard you, Dr. Gale, and you're right, but one shoe does not fit all, but I was just wondering how you plan to collect your data.
Well, we had the opportunity, Ms. Rasmussen, members of Children's Home Society,
Okay.
FSU, and of course the district, to sit down with President Larry Robinson last week. Our next step is Dr. Green Powell has been a part of the cabinet since its inception, if you will. And so she is going to let the council, our next presentation is going to be with the Council of
academic deans.
And we'll talk about what's needed, and they will give us guidance as to how they will go out into the community and do that needs assessment. But one thing that I can say, a needs assessment was done maybe 2 years ago, and we're going to look at that information and share that with them as well.
As well.
That was Whole Child Leon, I think.
That
right?
is correct. Yes, ma'am.
I think what's important, and this is the work that I do in my professional day job, is that one of the criticisms communities have of higher education often is that there is no front door. They don't know how to, if I need help from FSU, where do I go? There's not like, you walk into Westcott. So, and there are often academic silos between academic departments. So what happens in the College of Business versus what happens in the College of Social Sciences are two very different things, and the two may not ever discuss with each other. So when you're looking at something like this, which is very multidisciplinary, and you're asking academic deans to work across those silos, it can be a very comprehensive take. So it may be that FAMU, one or two colleges at FAMU will decide to invest in one or two projects, and then a couple of different colleges within FSU will decide to take on a couple of different projects. I mean, that it's just a matter of finding the people that are interested and excited about doing this work, and that's how we have to put it together.
Okay.
Because
That
the
makes
biggest thing we want to avoid is communities don't want higher ed coming in and studying them, doing something to them, or even doing something for them. They want you to do it with them. And so that's the key.
That sounds logical.
And Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Bowen?
you stated that much better than I could ever, because that was one of the criticisms early on when this idea was brought up. Nobody's coming to the community to talk to us about what we need.
What their needs are.
And we're not involved. And why can't we have some folk to study us who are of us from FAMU or surrounding areas to assess and to make sure that we have what we need as we research what our needs are. And so to hear it put like that, I think that, to me, that is a menu, if you would, for the success of this with the community buy-in. Because if it isn't, then again, they will be led down the tunnel, as has been the case on other occasions, not this one, and nothing will happen. So I'm very pleased that we have the kind of conduits we have to make this happen.
And the commitment for this is $25,000 a year for 25 years.
That's right.
So this is not a quick fix.
Stopgap. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I
bet
we're on the same page.
That was one of the first things as we went to visit community partnership schools. This isn't a quick fix. This is a commitment that we'll make for the long term, and we look forward to providing that data to show that we are making a difference. But it's going to be a slow process.
And this, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, this is my final question, and you probably already answered it. So that the community can understand how we are partnering with our neighbors and these other entities, what kind of publicity have we given or will we be giving to notify of what we're doing?
We're going to be doing a grand opening kind of ceremony in January. Again, kind of more slow. Make sure that we have all the all the players there, all the right people are invited, and really plan it because it's a huge celebration. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Madam Chair, real quick, I'd like to thank Dr. Gale for all of her hard work in this effort. I mean, they've been meeting every other week for the last year.
yeah.
That's right.
So, Michelle, I can't thank you enough for all that you've done to represent our school district in this effort. And congratulations to Anna Kay, who's a product of our public schools.
Yes.
And I'd also like to thank you for loaning your father to me from time to time. He's been, so her father's a former superintendent, Bill Woolley.
Oh, yeah.
And has been a good friend to me since I've taken office and a mentor. And he'll send me a funny text messages after a school board meeting or something. He thinks I need a little Woolley moment. But anyway, he's a great man, and so excited about the things you're going to do at Sable Palm.
Yes. Oh, so good to see you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. 5.06, school and event safety updates. All right, our safety expert.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, school board members.
Good afternoon.
We spoke at a workshop some weeks back and talked about updating you on the progress of as we move toward implementing Senate Bill 7026, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act. As we've said many times, probably sick of us hearing about how hard we've tried to work to make sure that we bring the best plan forward as fiscally responsible as we can. For those listening, the Stoneman Douglas Act, the main big dollar ticket is to make sure that we have a law enforcement officer in every single school, every elementary school, every special site. We have to conduct a thorough risk assessment of every one of our facilities. This gentleman here, Donald Kimbler, has single-handedly pretty much done that, and he's also been designated as our district's safety specialist. So he just started talking to me again. It's been a little cold. We also have put together with Dr. Cox a comprehensive mental health plan, and that has all been rolled out with threat assessment as well as behavioral interventions. All of this came at a price in my area of an additional $1.2 million. And as we mentioned to you when we started negotiations with law enforcement agencies in our area, Tallahassee Police, Leon County Sheriff's Office, those prices were coming back at a multiplier of that number for many reasons. And I think we've spoke exhaustively about that. But I bring good news. I can tell you that I stood up here some months ago and I told you that I believed it would work. And I believed we had enough officers in our community based on our size. And I can tell you that on August 1st, which was really late because of many reasons, rolling out a training program, we put our first launch to see how many officers would be interested in working in our schools. And we titled it, "We Need Your Help." 250 officers have signed up to work in our schools. And we have had 100% coverage, and that's 90 details a week. So we have already launched, we're into us today being Monday, 199 as of today. And we are using a program that we just started a week ago called Detail Commander, to where I get to view a calendar and the officers can sign up using their phones, and we have already completed and filled the month of September. So we're doing very well with that. Leon County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Tallahassee Police Department, have stepped up and assisted us. The feedback that I'm receiving from these principals has been excellent. We will do something a little more formal in terms of surveying and getting information back about these officers working in the schools. But I will say for the last 3 years, we've been doing this on a smaller scale. So these elementary schools that never had officers did in some format before, but now full day, every day.
John?
So
I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
May I ask a quick question here? This is a huge undertaking, and I think you handle it well. So I'm wondering, how much staff do you have for this? Have you had to hire? I hear a sneaker from the superintendent.
I really
I'm trying
appreciate
to
the
get
mental
to
health
that.
counseling.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
But it sounds like there would be some consideration, given all we've got to do, that there could be a need for some. I'm certainly not trying to do the superintendent's job. That's his call for the day-to-day management and such stuff. But when I read the paper, as we all did last week, about the happenings at one of our middle schools and the training, and you might speak to that a little bit later on, it dawned on me that's huge. And do we have enough folk yet even to help with that calendaring? That sounds like a phenomenal and large job. So would you speak to that a little bit later if you're not?
I will. So we did farm out the management and scheduling of getting the officers. That's the integrity group. We were client number one, so it was a leap for us, but we believed that they had the experience necessary, and we reviewed what they had in place, so that worked good. As far as the other superintendent, I have multiple conversations about adding staff at the appropriate time.
Okay.
What we, all of the folks that work in my department have like 20 plus years school safety experience, and bringing on somebody new and training them right at this moment would have been maybe not been fair to them or us right now. So at the appropriate time, yes, we will be seeking some assistance.
Okay, I just want to look out for your
Sounds good.
All right. So I'll put a price tag on all of this. This detail that we're running, the officers make $41 an hour. It's very economically positive for them. They work 7.5 hours a day. As I said, we're running 180 days in the school year. We come under just under $1 million with $57,000 in management fees. So right now, just related to this, we are meeting the mandate on this portion with the funds that were allocated for us, which were $1.2 million. So that's the good news related to it. Now, there's a lot to review. There's a lot to monitor in terms of trends. Sometimes once the football season starts, you might see some changes in terms of the people available, but I did not believe we would have 250 officers to fill those 18 jobs. But our size is perfect for this program the way we're running it. I understand in some other counties much south of us, they have a bigger number, and those numbers change the multiplier. In order to fill 100 schools, you might need 3,500 officers as opposed to 250 compared to the 18 that we have. So I'm feeling good about it so far.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to commend you and your team and the superintendent for your leadership, because I read in the paper, and I'm not going to mention the county because I wouldn't want to be derogatory, but I read in the paper about another county in this state that where school board members were shocked when they were handed a bill for overtime from their sheriff's department. And they said things like, we didn't know this was going to cost money. We thought this was a partnership. And from the very beginning, you have kept us informed. We've had tons of opportunities to ask questions. We've heard from the sheriffs. We've heard from the city and so forth. And so, anyway, I just, wanted to thank you for not putting us in that position. Goodness. I mean, I can't imagine any of us would have ever let that happen either. But I was really shocked, and I'm very grateful to you. And I wanted to ask if you could also, at some point in this talk, mention sporting events after what happened in Jacksonville over the weekend.
Right.
Sure, I was going to get to that. So obviously, I read those articles. Mr. Petley handed them to me, but I did see them over the weekend as well. That's one of our biggest worries. Anytime you put thousands and thousands of people at one of these large events, usually with competing interests in terms of the outcome of a game or whatever geography, it might be your rival across town, that kind of stuff. So in 2008 and 2009, we did put together a stadium action plan, event plan. Had some considerations related to how do you evacuate those types of facilities for tornadoes, lightning, as well as critical incidents. And it was involved around the Incident Command System, which is a FEMA-based training. I can tell you that it needs to be updated. You know, we've had a long time with no incidents, but I can tell you that we heavily staff our sporting events. The sheriff's office, regardless of the size of the game, usually has at least 8 and up to 18. They do an operations plan for each game, and then once the spectators evacuate, they go into the parking lot and traffic control to get everybody out. We're probably one of the last, maybe not, but one of the last counties that uses a mounted posse. So the location of the mounted posse is right next to our Cox Stadium. So that's utilized for really large events, and especially around the time of the fair. So that's another powerful tool for that. As far as our stadium, I didn't mention it in the first part, we have a potential $1.2 million coming to us in target hardening funds, and we have to outline a plan for what to do with that money. One of the most positive enhancements to the football game security is we have completely revamped our camera systems in the stadium. And they completely rival that of Doak Campbell Stadium. So we can zoom in on a blade of artificial grass at our stadium, but it's very, very comprehensive. And we also put a small command post for the sheriff's office that they can use at the games to monitor the cameras and move the cameras. And additionally, we're going to be using our new signage message boards for the See Something, Say Something, sort of similar as you see at professional and college sports, where if you're having a fan experience and somebody in front of you is not cooperating, there's a subtle way to get that information as well as to the folks working there. So in terms of those cameras, the quality is just really, really strong. And in terms of the front of our regular schools as well as parking lot areas, we're looking at coming up with a pretty significant project to have those quality cameras at every one of our schools.
Great. And the law enforcement presence isn't just at the Cox Stadium, right? It's at Leon or Godby or wherever, right?
Yes, so we generally use the 2 large stadiums, Cox and obviously Childs, but however, there are some homecoming, some variants related to that. Additionally, in our SRD contract with the Sheriff's Office, it covers all major varsity sports, and then the other smaller events are run similar to what we're doing here with a detail if the home officer can't work that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Bowen.
John, I applaud your efforts as well, and I'm interested in knowing, particularly as you speak of zooming in and responding, and it was already in the papers all last week about our incident at one of our middle schools, and it just seems that everybody did what they were supposed to do in that instance with having found the gun. So at this point, are there additional steps you will take? I've gotten those questions. What more should we do, can we do, outside of talking to parents about knowing what your children are doing and that kind of thing, and zeroing in on that? Would you have any comments about that?
So I had a parent from NIMS show up in my office. I had a long conversation with her this morning. In terms of the outcome is that staff identified an issue, followed through it, and the result was, unfortunately, that a student brought a firearm to school. And then we acknowledged it, and it was in the public space. It was in the media. So that's, everybody takes from that. A lot of people will take from that there's a wholesale problem, which then we can then go back to our data. We can go back to our incidents that have happened in the past and show that that's not accurate. But what I say, the one thing that we definitely need is we're piling a lot on all of our folks. So I think without gadgets or different items, I think mainly it's training and exercise and having people knowing what to do in situations like that. And there's always more room for that and less time.
Ms. Woods?
Just had one question about the elementary system, which is using basically the substitute system. Is there a way for an officer to come back more than once to the same school, does it prioritize for that? Because I know, talking to a couple of elementary principals, they were saying, boy, we wish we could have this person come back, over and over and over, because they get to start knowing the kids and the bus situation, and it's going to be important. And I know for budget reasons we couldn't do it this year to have the same officer at the school every day, but I hope we're moving toward that as funds become available. And just wanted to know if the system is set up to have sort of repeat officers so that the principals don't have to retrain someone every time someone walks in the door, new person.
So like the new Focus system, this particular system has all kinds of gadgets and tools that you can utilize. For most agencies, obviously, whoever gets more jobs than the other person, there's some fairness components. So whether seniority or geography or whatever it is. So I've spoken to a lot of principals about that. They would like to have the same cadre of officers at that school. So eventually we'll get there. What we're trying to learn in the first month is how many resources we have, and is it continuous, right? And then we want to go back, and that is actually kind of already happening. When we first rolled out the month of September, within an hour and a half, we filled the month. And then those officers can also go back, and you can make yourself as a backup for any particular day as well. So I get all the email confirmations about this job was filled, this job canceled, this job filled. So I usually see them filling very quickly. But we would like to have a number, I don't know what that is yet, whether it's 5, 6, 10, that it takes to fill that one particular school's need. And whether we make one person a coordinator of that for contingencies, because things do happen. I mean, life happens. There's one of the officers' wife was delivering a baby and had to cut short the detail. The other thing we can do, we really don't want to get too much into it, but we can turn, instead of a 7.5-hour detail, it might be a 4-hour detail for one person and a 3.5-hour detail for others. And that just gives us the flexibility to make sure we have enough folks.
Thank you.
I thank you for the work that you do, and in that way we continue to be safety is our #1 priority. And I think because of your leadership, we're able to live up to that. They were doing a good job. I was thinking that I got some calls about NIM school as well, and I was thinking that, and I was told by the community that it was a teacher that discovered this. I never heard anything from the district of what really happened, and but if it was a teacher or any staff person that discovers safety for all students in the schools, I think we need to, as a district, Mr. Superintendent, recognize that person.
I agree, Madam Chair, and you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Safety is always job one, and I'd like to thank Chief Unkiar and all of his hard work and efforts. And yes, we did from the beginning discuss. I said, "This is going to be a heavy lift," and he said, "No, I got it. For now, I have it. Let me get it. Let me get the ball rolling, and then we'll kind of see how things go." And we would like to obviously have the same person day in and day out. But the first step was to make sure we had a person day in and day out. And then we can go back and always tweak it now that we know that we have the numbers. Thankfully, because of the Sheriff's Department in the city of Tallahassee, we have 250 deputies and officers that have stepped up to volunteer to give their day off to help us in this effort. To talk about the sporting events, we gauge each event differently. We have the big, in-city rivalry football games, and you need more deputies on hand then. Or if you have a Godby and a Rickards basketball game, there's going to be they're going to pack the gym. So each event generates its own because of history, the numbers of people, and then generally the numbers dictate how many officers or deputies we need to staff and pay extra duty. But we try to have as much coverage as we possibly can. And unfortunately, with the things that happened in Jacksonville, not only Jacksonville, but in other parts of the country, in a stupid John Madden video game, I'm like, what in the world is going on? But we do take this very seriously, and I know our Sheriff's Department does as well when they're protecting our kids at these events. And you can't protect against everything, but I can assure you that we try to do the best we can to plan on the front end in case somebody does show up that wants to do harm. But again, I'd like to thank John and all of his hard work, and Donald and Buddy, and it was certainly a team effort to put us in a position where we are now.
Great. Good job. Yay, yay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Persons to be heard.
Madam Chair. No speakers.
Okay.
And quickly, Madam Chair, before you move into items of consent, there were 3 questions presented by board members that pertain to items of consent, item 12.03, item 12.04, and item 18.01. So if board members still have questions on those items, then they'll need to be pulled from consent, moved to consideration so that they can be discussed.
Okay, all right, we'll take the first one. Do you still have any concern, Ms. Bowen?
No, Madam Chair. I have had my questions answered prior to this meeting by staff, and I'm good with it. It just appeared that was necessary for a small correction, and so I'm great.
Okay.
If I'm looking at the right one.
Okay, all right. School board chair Stripling is not here for hers.
Okay.
$18.01. Ms. Bowen, 18.01.
18. Oh, wait, hold it just a second. Let me catch up with you. I'm on the wrong page, Madam Chair, right now. 18.01. That was a question about the amendment to Canopy School site.
Right.
The donation agreement. Yes, I thought that it was interesting that
do you want to continue? Do you have a question? Do you still have a question on that matter? So if
yes,
so,
move it to consideration,
okay.
please. Thank you.
Okay, so then the motion will need to be
okay.
Moving items of consideration with the exception of 18.01.
That is my
18.01.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Thank you. That was my motion.
All right. The next one is.
Wait. I think we're moving and seconding to go ahead and move the consent agenda. Is there another one to be discussed?
Those were the 3 questions, Madam Chair. So Ms. Bowen said that she didn't have these questions anymore, but she wanted to discuss 18.01, so
Right.
she's moved that one.
Right.
It's been
So
seconded.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay. Now we have one more question.
But that's not pertaining to an item on consent.
Okay, these are not.
Nope. So you're now moving on to consideration because
Okay.
you all have approved the consent agenda.
All right. Now, we have not approved the consent agenda yet.
That was the motion and the second.
It was for that
Okay.
question? Okay. All right.
So we're now at 19.01. I mean, excuse me, now at 18.01 because that's the item that's been pulled to consideration.
Right, about Canopy School site donation agreement, Madam Chair.
Right.
Okay.
18.01.
John Britton.
I think
John Britton's here.
Mr. Albritton is going to talk about that.
Okay,
Yes,
Mr.
sir, I'm
Albritton.
listening.
Well,
Amendment to
what I saw
Canopy
is
site donation agreement.
My question, I wanted to just be clear. I saw the explanation, but I thought for what the answer was and the question was that we could just speak briefly about this, the dollars and acreage involved, and all of this happened some 10 years ago. If there might not be just a brief explanation for the listening public of what we were doing. I noticed that was already noted in the newspapers anyway. So could you make a couple of statements about what is really happening at this point, please, sir?
okay. What is happening is the Canopy School donation agreement was in October 12 of 2010, where the board accepted in a PUD the elementary school on 7 acres. The developer has since sold his to Ox Bottom Mortgage LLC, and they have approached the school district originally as when were we going to have the new elementary school built. With the DOE requirements that we fall under, that we do not have need for the capacity of an elementary school at this time, they reached out to us again and asked if we would consider expediting this reverter clause that's in the contract. They offered us originally $210,000 to expedite this reverter, with it going to W.T. Moore because W.T. Moore is their zoned elementary school. The board had asked could we have them also be a community partner at the last workshop.
Right.
We approached them with that also, and their legal staff advised them not to have an open-end contract like that written. So they have agreed to give additional $5,000 for a 5-year period, which for a 7-acre site that had a reverter clause that goes back to Oxbottom Mortgage in 5 years, we're getting $235,000 for it.
Right. I thank you, and I know that we have had some past discussions about this, but just needed a refresher. That's good. Thank you.
I would add that I think it's important for the public to know we do not own this property. This is property that was set aside that if we so chose to build a school on a 7-acre plot within 5 years of the start of this development, that we had first rights. We have made the determination that we're not going to need a new school on that site, especially just 7 acres. So in order just to tie it up for 5 years really doesn't help anyone. And so what they've agreed to do, or you're agreeing to do this evening, is to allow them to go ahead and make different use for that land, since we're not going to use it for a school, and they've agreed to give us $235,000, $210,000 to upgrade the storefront part of the school. You know, we made a lot of improvements on the site itself over the course of the summer, and relieving all the congestion off of Dempsey Mayo. And I don't know if y'all have driven past more lately or not, but it looks really nice. And then we'll have upcoming classroom renovations over the next several years. Once we finish a lot of the stuff going on at Richters and Guybe, I think we're looking at 2019, 2020 to start getting rid of the pods. We have square footage that's currently used non-instructional, that's in the old pod system, that we're going to recapture that space. But this gets them out of that agreement. We talked about an open-ended agreement. You know, they weren't interested in, because they didn't really know what that meant. So the additional $5,000 over the next 5 years can help support whatever academic programs we go to infuse at W.T. Moore.
Okay, that's very helpful to have that additional information. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say I think this is a really win-win agreement. We weren't going to be able to use that property, and the fact that the developer has agreed to donate this money, I think, is great for Moore. And also, it's also a commitment to the public schools, because it means a charter school is not going to go out there. It means, we are going to bring resources and the folks who choose to live in Canopy right into our public schools with their support. So I appreciate the developer's contribution on that, and I just think it's a win-win agreement.
Yeah, and we've met with them on several occasions, and some of you have been involved in those conversations, and they support our public schools, and they want to help ensure that the public schools in those areas are thriving, and they want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I do appreciate them giving us the land, and then coming forward with the money to make sure to enhance our public schools. And I want to commend the developers for that plan.
What's the time frame on the storefront and sign being finished?
So we've already in negotiation with the fencing company to put up the brick columns and the iron fence, and I'd say sooner rather than later, right, Danny?
Yeah, I read that about the enhancement of the
fence. They put up temporary fencing across the front to get school opened, and now they'll come back, I would say within the next several months, and start the brick columns and the iron fence that goes across there. We're also doing black fencing around the holding pond area. So we're going to dress it up, the storefront up, as much as we possibly can. That fence will kind of match the fence that runs along those single-family homes that are owned by the Westminster Properties. So their fence will just continue across the front of Moore. So it'll look nice when it's finished. And then we're also doing they're also sponsoring a brand new digital marquee.
Yeah.
So it'll look. I mean, it's last year you couldn't even see the school from the road. You couldn't even know you wouldn't even know there was a school there. So it's sooner rather than later, to answer your question.
And is that that's going to be a retention pond? The big hole they're digging now?
There is a retention pond on the
5 acres we just bought, right?
But just on the southeast part of that of that property. The rest of the back of the property are additional play space, additional parking, additional ball fields. So I think of the 5 acres, Danny, what, 1.5? How big is it?
Yes, you also relocated the existing holding ponds that were on the school site to open it up more.
So there used to be like a holding pond in front of the school, 2 or 3 holding ponds along the side of the school. We filled all of those in where they're now usable space and converted it. Now there's just one pond. Well, there's one in the back, but just one major holding pond that's on probably an acre of the 5 acres or less.
Yes, and it is also some additional space in there for a future building if the school grows to that.
Great, thank you.
Right.
Well, I have a question, Superintendent. Of the $5,000, how many 5,000? You said 3.
They're given $210,000 immediately, and then $5,000 for 5 years in addition to that to support any academic programs. And we've had some discussions. I don't want to go into some preliminary discussions about infusing some standalone academic programs at Moore to help attract kids back to that school as part of our big plan to try to get some of those children back that are in that zone.
That's the part I didn't know, and you just cleared it for me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So they're contributing the additional dollars to support the academic programs in addition to the fence and the marquee and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Move approval?
Second.
Second. Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Okay, 18.02.
19.01.
19, I'm sorry.
Scroll down.
1901.
Keep going.
Madam Chair.
Your thing right here.
Ready?
Okay, just a minute. I can catch up with you. Okay, 19.02.
19.01.
1.
Yes.
Okay.
I move the superintendent's recommendation for approval to advertise policy 1130.02 nepotism employment of relatives of administrative personnel, 3130.02 nepotism employment of relatives of instructional personnel, and 4130.02 nepotism employment of relatives of support personnel for a public hearing and adoption on September 25th, 2018.
Second.
Any other question? All in favor, say aye.
You want to present this?
You going to speak to that one, Superintendent?
We've spoken to it several. I'm excited. I mean, so
You went up
keep
there. I thought you were
going.
ready to speak to it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It passes 4-0.
Okay.
19.02.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Rasmussen.
I recommend approval of the superintendent's recommendation for policy to advertise policy 1362.01, anti-fraternization between subordinate and superior personnel. Also, policy 3362 and 4362.01, so that supervisors and subordinate staff cannot have a fraternization relationship.
Okay.
Move approval?
Second.
All right. These, okay, second. How you do for discussion? She said second.
Are you asking if anyone wants to have discussion? Is there any discussion?
These are the policy placed in there in discussion.
I'd like to make a comment, but we can
Yeah,
go
make-
ahead and
make-
pass
we'll
it.
make a comment.
Go ahead and
Make it at
pass
the
it, and then
end.
No, you can make a comment.
Okay, make it now then. Go ahead, Ms. Woods.
Okay. I just wanted to say something about this, so I wrote down what I was going to say, make sure I said it right. No, it's just that we live in a relatively small town, and we are one of the largest employers in Leon County, and it's natural that folks who are related or in a relationship might find themselves working in this school system, and I've been in the school system over 40 years now, and I know that happens a lot. But we have to avoid any appearance of bias when a supervisor has a relationship with a person who they're supervising. So I'm really proud of these two policies that we're discussing right now. I think we can be considered a leader, particularly in the fraternization policy, which I understand almost no other schools in the state have. So I'm happy that we're leading the way on that. Favoritism, perceived or actual, is a poisonous thing in any kind of work environment. And so to really get clear about this and specific, I think it's going to be great for all of our employees. And so I'm happy that we're doing this, and I appreciate your leadership on this and the board's leadership.
Totally.
I do too. And also I'd like to add, thank you, Ms. Woods, that about relationships. If someone have, if there's a relationship and then that person reported to the supervisor, of the parts to reflect that, if they report it to the supervisor, then we have, as leaders, we should be able to, if we need to move them to another site, we should do that. Okay? That's it. All right. Any other comments?
I have a comment since we sort of lumped. Sorry, did I jump in front of you?
No, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say
Ms.
real quick,
Rasmussen.
because I talked to Ms. Williams about this earlier. The earlier policy that we just adopted for advertisement regarding nepotism mentions the board. It mentions the school board. And really, the school board does not have hiring and firing authority. So the only reason I guess we're mentioned is I think there are one or maybe two employees who are considered direct reports. So in that vein, this is not really about school board having any sort of supervisory subordinate relationship with anybody.
Totally.
Just wanted to clarify that.
That's true.
And Madam Chair,
Ms. Bowen.
Thank you. I was going to say that as well. I think it's very important that the public understands that that's where we are. And I'm proud and I support this anti-fraternization policy, and thank the superintendent for the work that he and his staff are doing. And it does take not only strategy and know-how, but it takes, I think, looking at our situations and dealing with them and being very forthright and keeping it crystal clear as to where we stand in these kinds of governance, or we, the superintendent, as well. Okay?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It passes 4-0.
And quickly, if I may, Madam Chair, sometimes John Hunkyar says, well, why do we always have to go first? But I think this is a case where we need to go first. But also, this isn't easy. And someone's saying, well, teachers, why do teachers marry teachers and principals and people? Well, because lots of times what attracts you to someone is common interest. And if you have common interest in you each have love for children and love for educating children, then, yeah, you're naturally drawn together. It's not like an attorney drawn to a teacher. I mean, not that that can't happen, but that you do a lot of times. The biggest part of a relationship is having common interests and common passions. Set aside the romantic piece someplace else, put a pin in that, but just the conversations you have and how we can better educate our kids and where you are lined up politically in support of public schools. Well, folks like that are naturally drawn together. But I think this does set the tone for what we expect and what we don't expect moving forward in the areas of nepotism where you're already in an existing relationship, and then fraternization. That there are distinct lines, and when lines are crossed, and then we'll take action.
Can I say one more thing to that point? I hope we're clear that we're not trying to be. I appreciate what you just said, because we're not trying to be mean and say we shouldn't be friends. We shouldn't, have strong professional work relationships. But when it enters into a different realm, and if you are in the same workspace with a supervisor and a subordinate, then there are other remedies that would make that still be okay if you can be transferred. So we're not trying to say, we're not trying to be mean. We just want to make sure we're avoiding the perception, real or otherwise.
And future issues, like Ms. Wood said, perceived favoritism, maybe on the front end. And, lots of times, probably 98% of the time, these relationships go south. And then even years later, there are consequences that will be paid. So let's stop it on the front end instead of, once it does go south, us trying to figure out and clean up the damage, do the collateral damage. But, we're not telling people don't associate or
you're not allowed
to date someone that's in the education profession or anything like that. We just have to be careful as to how it's perceived, and then the position power that one may hold over another, and how that's viewed.
Absolutely.
But I think this is a big step in the right direction. I'm really proud of you all for doing this, and I want to thank Marlene Feliciano for. There's the star of the whole thing, because we tried to make this simple. And we said, let's start with a simple document on both of these issues. And if we want to add, we can always add to it. But this is a step in the right direction. So, Marlene, thank you, and Dr. Gale for all of your efforts.
Madam Chair, may I just say very quickly related to this topic? Thank you, Mr. Superintendent Marlene and others. But I think all the comments that have been made are just right, spot on, because we don't want to have anything in the workplace that is going to cause an environment of toxicity that will cause folk not to be able to do their jobs. Right. And even though I might not be in the relationship with anyone, in as much as that relationship is happening, it can cause some kinds of backlash. And so I'm glad that it is the superintendent's responsibility to take care of those kinds of things in this Leon County school system, because I think it's just important to do. So thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving right along, 19.03. Where is that? Madam Chair. Ms. Bowen.
I move the superintendent's recommendation for board approval of the McGinnis and Fleming Engineering, Inc. Professional Engineering Consulting Services Contract for CANA Compound Compressed Natural Gas CNG Equipment Expansion and Upgrades Project.
Second.
19.03 has been moved by Ms. Bowen, second by Ms. Woods. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes 4-0.
This is so we can
we
put.
I just want
to make sure this is.
You need Mr.
No, I just want to say for the public that this will allow us to put compressed natural gas at our other compounds, so that buses are not having to come all the way out here to fill up and go all the way back out there to run their routes. And I think
so we save money.
Yes, thank you.
Right, so we're in the process of renegotiating our contract with No Petro. We're going to turn that site over to them so we can fill efficiently at both facilities. And this is a step in the right direction to meet that contract, and then to allow our buses to fill both on the east side of town and west side of town. But we need to do this up front where we can get some design work, because right now we need to do some plant upgrades. And we were almost finished signing a contract with No Petro to turn operations over to them, and then to amend the contract that was signed several years ago.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Great. Okay, 19.04. Achieve 3,000 renewals for 2018-2019.
Good evening, Madam Chair, School Board Members, Superintendent. Before you this evening is a recommendation to approve the annual renewal for the 2018-19 school year for the Achieve Literacy Software Solution. The Achieve Literacy Software Solution is used primarily with our struggling readers or emerging readers in middle school. So before you tonight is the contract for approval for Achieve 3000, which is our literacy support for middle school students.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, before you go to second, I know second, accept it. Do second, then discuss it. Okay, second, then discuss it. Okay. What is this Achieve for the middle school?
Okay, so what Achieve 3000 is it's Success Maker and iReady.
Success Maker.
Okay, so that's really the elementary side of the house. When we get to middle school, though, we really don't have a tool that we can use with our students who are struggling with literacy skills. So Achieve 3000 is essentially Success Maker literacy for middle school students.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it is at all of our middle schools, including our K-8 sites.
Oh, great. Sounds great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes 4-0. 19.05, remind 1.01 Inc. Contract 2018-2019.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I know normally you all are asking me the questions, but I got a few questions for you tonight. Talk about this. First of all, I want to know how many of you have one of these? All right. Okay. Now, Pew Research Center says that 95% of all Americans have one of these. I've seen as high as
what's the percentage?
95%. I've seen as high as 98%.
Oh, okay.
So most of us have one of these, right?
Okay.
How many of you text? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why we text. It's convenient, it's fast, you seem to get a quick answer. And the thing I know is not everybody sitting in front of a computer, but everybody has one of these within hand's reach, right? We don't go, I mean, matter of fact, don't you turn around and go back home if you forgot this? I mean, I've had to do that, right? It's so critical to what we do. So that's sort of set up to talk about Remind, which is a K-12 focused application that is used to increase community involvement. And and how it does that is by allowing the schools, the teachers, and the school to text message parents and students. Okay, so that's what it does. It's made just for them. Research has shown that a meaningful communications can make an impact on students' performance, especially in things like attendance and greater parent and turnout and involvement in your events. 80% of the teachers said that students were more likely to complete an assignment after receiving messages. Research has also shown that simple, low-cost interventions can have an outsized impact on critical student outcomes in the areas like attendance, academic performance, and even college matriculation, where you talk to that student about after they graduate, hey, don't forget to go sign up. Don't forget to do that. Interestingly enough, when I was looking at this, and in the packet that I provide, you'll see these stats. 79% of parents prefer text messaging as a way to communicate.
Okay.
Only 13% like email, and only 8% like a phone call.
Wow.
So text messaging really is a very important and effective way to communicate. Now, what's nice about Remind? It provides an effective way to communicate using texting, and it lets teachers decide when they are available, and then it allows them to hide their personal phone number. So they can have a text message conversation without the parent knowing their personal phone number. In addition, and this is what's important to me, because we're going to talk about texting in future school board meetings, is it documents all communication, especially text. So one of the issues we're going to have is how do we know what teachers have been communicating with parents and students, and so it captures that, okay? With the enterprise version of Remind, and when I say enterprise version, that's the version that costs you money, not the free version of Remind, we can search text centrally like we do from the email archiver. So when we're trying to answer a public records request, I don't have to run around and get the teacher. I can do that centrally just like I do today with the email archiver, okay? And the enterprise version allows us to do what we call roster it. That means we can set it up so when the teacher walks in, it's just all set up. It's got all the students in their class, got all the parents' addresses and things like that in it. So that's the advantage of the Remind enterprise version. What I also like about it is that it really is written well for teachers. It's a product that teachers love. It allows them to easily set up different groups. So for example, if you are the football coach, you could easily text your football students, or you could easily text your football parents. Band, you just think about the different groups, how you communicate with them. And then even from a school level, you could easily text the entire your community of parents. So I think it's a very powerful app. It's an effective way to communicate with families, and it's an easy way. And currently, over 500 Leon County school teachers use the free version today. So it's something that people like and use. And with the enterprise version, like I said, we'll be able to do the rostering, and we'll be able to centrally retrieve those texts. And that's why we're looking at buying this product.
Quick question.
Yes.
You said it hides the teacher's phone number, but can the parent respond to the teacher?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. It allows two-way communication.
Or the student or whatever. Okay.
It does. Mm-hmm.
So we'll be able to use this in emergency situations, like when the
It's
bus
another
is on a
method.
field trip, emergencies, that sort of thing.
Right. And what I find is with all these different apps, you get overlapping capabilities,
Mhm.
but that's okay. I mean, when it's an emergency, I think it's okay that we get that out, whatever means we can.
Okay. Well, we students, I heard you said 98%. For the 2% that do not have the tools, will we be trying to find a way to make sure they get them?
Well, there's only, it's of course, it's a computer thing, right? It's either on your phone or on your cell or on a computer. There's only two ways you can really get it when it's electronic.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2% is always something we struggle with, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is nice, though, if they have a cell phone and say they have limited minutes and things like that, if they'll get near one of our schools, we have what we call guest wireless. They can connect to that and still, communicate with us as well. But if they're away, of course, they wouldn't. That 2% would not have that ability.
So we have guest wireless at the school.
We have guest wireless at the school, so if you get on a school campus, you can pick up the guest wireless. Parents can.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pass 4-0.
Good job.
If I may, Madam Chair, just add to that, the one of the big components or biggest reasons for doing this is for public records requests. We can capture all of our emails to our server, but we didn't have a solution for these. And just recently, I had to turn my personal cell phone over to be downloaded. There's not a lot to see on this, but I did have to turn over my personal cell phone to be downloaded to retrieve text messages that I was not sending but had received,
right.
That had school-related issues on them that were part of a public document, part of a public record. So no longer, by using this method, we will be able to capture these text messages and instead of me having to turn over my phone, right, Bill?
Right, and it's going to be a three-prong approach. We're going to use, and Opal and I have been going over the policy procedures that we'll be bringing up to make all this work, but it's one method we're going to use, and it gets quite complex depending upon if you've got a school board phone or you don't have a school board phone. But this is for sure a way to capture texts that are being generated by our teachers, because there's 2,500 teachers, and normally when you're trying to capture text, they want to charge you per device, per month, and that's really expensive. So this is a good way to capture that. But I'll be coming back at you with how we're going to work on employees, those who have a school board phone and those who don't.
And
those who don't will be using this.
Yeah, we had lots of conversations about this, and first my thought was, well, we'll just take the governor's stance. We don't text. Well, in reality, is that we're texting, and we can say we're not, but we are, and I would dare to say that state workers are texting as well.
Certainly.
So I think this gets us in a much better place when we have public records requests, because we were so used to people just requesting emails. And so now what do we do when they request text messages? Well, for now, I have to give up my phone. But I think this will move us to a much better place when those requests come.
Okay.
Will there be a way, like the teachers, for us to have, because constituents will text us if they, our numbers are all public, to similarly participate somehow?
Yes. So anybody that doesn't have a school board phone will use this app, and they'll put it on their phone, and then, what we're going to say basically in the policy is that you're going to agree, although I can't force you to put the actual app on your phone, but if you're going to conduct business, this is the app that you conduct business with.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job. Okay, 19.0.
Six.
Oh, okay. Dr. Crump.
Good evening,
Good
everybody. Superintendent Hannah, Chair, and school board members. This is basically our annual contract that we have with Pace for Girls. It's one of our DJJ schools, along with AMI, and we also have a school within the school board, JDC, Juvenile Detention Center. And what this particular contract does, it just pretty much just outlines how we as the board and PACE work in partnership throughout the school year. So for this year, there's nothing much different from last year to this year. It just kind of just made some changes based on some wording. And for example, one of the changes that we made dealt with like the annual, let me make sure I get the right wording.
So this is a contract that we've had with Pace for Girls for a number of years.
Yes. So nothing much has changed.
Yeah, and their FTE runs through us. So determined on their enrollment, this number that you see, that 500 some odd thousand, is adjusted up or down, given how many students they actually have in the school. And they usually hover somewhere around 70. I think that's about their capacity. And I've talked again. Many of you know Kelly Audie, and they do a fantastic job. And I'm sure if you haven't been to their new facility, you need to go. But it's really nice.
It's beautiful. So it fluctuates throughout the year based on the FTE. So of course we have it in October, the next one in February, and they also do the ones over the summer. So based on that FTE count, that annual amount does change. But from last year to this year, there's nothing much of a change. Like I said, there was just some basic wording, like with the annual, I can't find the part in here, but it was just some basic changes to it. So nothing much of a change from last year to this year.
Thank you. I used to have a new facility because I was out. They were out on Appalachia. They moved from there.
Yeah,
yes.
They're off of South Monroe now.
Yeah, it's great.
South Monroe.
Yes,
Off
ma'am.
of Jennings.
Off of Jennings.
Off of Jennings.
Street.
Off of Jennings Street.
It's beautiful if you haven't gone.
It's a great program. I move
Please
approval.
make
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, it passes 4-0.
They do good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Upcoming meetings.
Okay, information items. Upcoming meetings. Do you have any?
None.
Report from board liaisons.
None.
Okay. Superintendent comments.
I think we covered most of it in our reports to be heard with the state, with Chief Hunkiar, some of the others that came forward on reports. And I did catch Dina McAllister on her way out, and she put on a note she's meeting with Leonard Dietzen and our attorneys, and when, as part of their conversation on Wednesday, they'll have about focus and what our expectations are about teachers updating, how regular they need to update, and
Thank you.
so we're going to enter that discussion on Wednesday as well. No, other than that, I mean, week
Week
three.
What about
three.
teacher contract?
So the teacher contracts, they'll go back on Wednesday to talk about money. And I'm excited. We talked about trying to move the salary schedule up, the entire schedule up, our beginning teacher pay. We need to look at our beginning teacher pay. We've seen that in trying to recruit teachers and then trying to retain teachers. And we think we have, by the letter of the law, can move the schedule up as a whole and then also have money in there for performance pay in addition to what they'll receive in Best and Brightest. I know the chief was hopeful that he kind of had drool going down the side of his chin when he saw the governor was going to ask for that $58 million back from the Guardian program. And I said, just slow down, Kemosabe.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the legislature said, maybe not. So I said, you just wipe it off because we had that for us. What would have been $750? About $750,000 for Leon County schools that we could have. He was seeing an extra person and. But
Still might
that's
be
not.
possible.
It doesn't look like that's going to happen. But no, all in all, I think with the school safety stuff, the security monitors, we had a little setback with our security monitors and renegotiate Chris Petley's contract. But some of the numbers, the letters were coming off because we got the upgraded shirts and some of the letters were coming off the word security. But look, if that's the biggest problem we have, that's,
really. And some of them wanted a different kind of material in that shirt. I'm sure you heard about that. I went, I'm sorry. May I ask, Mrs. Superintendent? Thank you, Madam Chair. You probably spoke to this, or perhaps you didn't. You mentioned that we were short of some teachers in sciences and some other areas. Have we been able to fill those positions in those critical areas?
Yes, ma'am. I believe we have. I think we had a couple of like a kindergarten position still up and a third grade teacher still up. But all those positions have been filled. But we have to get competitive and start beating the bushes and going on recruiting expeditions and then see what we can do to partner with Flagler and Florida A&M and Florida State University and some of the others to try to enhance or encourage those folks that are coming and graduating from their program to stay here in Tallahassee. And
so you have a plan underway for that, of course, for the future. I see head nod. So
we do, and we've been in conversations with Mary Nicholson and the folks from HR to get much more proactive and with recruiting people. And it's just gone are the days. And Rosanna, remember, we used to go to the Civic Center every year and have a hiring fair, and you'd open up those elephant doors and hundreds of applicants. It was like hundreds and hundreds of applicants would come in. Althorian remembers, and now those days are they've come and gone. It's like the buffalo. The buffalo would all know the world of the buffalo.
They're gone. And there's also a time in this county when there were certain assigned staff who had the authority to hire on the spot after some long interviews, and don't know that's where you are anymore, but whatever it takes to get the job done, particularly with the best that we need for our school system, I'm sure you're thinking of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Money will go a long way to help. I mean, they didn't get in this profession because of the money, but they have bills to pay and mouths to feed, and
yes, of course.
you know, if they can't sustain a living, you know, in the education profession, then they're going to turn elsewhere, and that's what we're seeing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I talked to Dr. Robinson the other day when I saw him about pre-internship. I know when I taught school, it was a joy to have pre-interns in my classes. And so he said it was something he would get with you about, Superintendent Hannah, that you all can talk about. And he talked with the education department at his school, Dr. Powell Green, so we can see what we can do to get that going again at FAMU and Florida State. Because that way they can learn hands-on in the classroom, and also some of them will like it and want to teach. So it's something you all can start negotiating about. Okay. Anything else? Well, where are we? Let's see. Continue. Are we on 23? Continuing concerns from board members.
That's me.
All right, Ms. Woods.
Okay. I wanted to give a report about a trip that went on with Friday up to Atlanta. Assistant Superintendent Jillian Gregory went. Dr. Ronna Flanagan from Hartsville Elementary. Jessica Chapman from the Leon County Schools Professional Learning Department, and Representative Loran Osley, and Wendy Walker, who's the former president of Leadership Florida. And purpose-built schools and purpose-built communities is a hard thing to describe, so I sort of wrote it down so I could describe this, because it's taken me a year to really understand it. You know, we've talked at this dais and throughout the community about desegregating our schools, and we understand that it's complicated and that schools often reflect their neighborhoods, and so we can't do it alone. And the purpose-built communities, they are formed as a nonprofit organization. They're based in Atlanta, and they've had a lot of success. They use a holistic approach to look at generational poverty. And what they do is they come in and work with local leaders, local residents, local heavy hitters to coordinate all the silos with city government, county government, the chamber, and they focus on three things, really. They focus, and they pick a certain part of the community that really needs revitalization. In this case, they are working with the Orange Avenue complex, that the housing development there that is up for redevelopment. So there will be, you know, a new development there. They already have the developers in place, and so there's possibilities for big change in that area. So they have chosen that area to work with. Actually, Purpose-Built Community hasn't decided to come here yet. They're still meeting to make sure that Leon County and Tallahassee has the will to go forward. And they have three components. One is this, their goal is to have a high-quality mixed-income housing. And the second component involves the schools, and they really are looking for an effective cradle to college pipeline. And that's where the school system comes in. And that's why we went to Atlanta to see what they've already established. And then the other is a community wellness program and resources. So we went to Atlanta to see what they have, because they have already been experimenting with this for over 18 years. And they also are working in about 20 different communities and have about 50 in the pipeline. So this is a big deal. It's a national deal, and they really understand that schools cannot do this by themselves. Schools reflect neighborhoods, and neighborhoods must reflect a broad range of people in order to be successful. So we visited, we met with the CEO, his name is David Edwards, and his team, and we looked at two schools. We first went to a school called Thomasville Heights Elementary, and it's a part of the Atlantic Public School System, but Purpose-Built has a contract with them to try to turn around that school. Now, they are in a very blighted neighborhood. And purpose-built community has not surrounded it yet with the infrastructure and so forth that they have at their other development. But I think they wanted us to see that first, because that's just like, this is sort of the before, and then they showed us the after. And I will say, as we walked up to that school, I said to one of the colleagues, we are so lucky that we have the house sales tax in this town, because not one of our schools looks like that school from the outside. You know, if you drive up to any school in Leon County, they look good. And you can tell that money and resources have gone into the school. And I'll just say that at this school, they really need help. They're working on the interior, but, you know, it was kind of sad. But when we went inside and met the principal and the teachers, they are all in, and they are really going to transform that school. And I know that the exterior will come with it, but what's inside, of course, is always the most important. And they're working on a STEAM concept, very project-based learning, a lot of early intervention, a lot of social, emotional learning, bringing in what we talked about earlier with like the community partnership schools with health services and early childhood. And so I really admired their effort, and I look forward to seeing that school in another 10, 15 years in that whole neighborhood, because this is about neighborhood transformation as much as it is about school transformation. The second school we went to was formed in 2000. It was formed as a charter school within the highest crime-ridden neighborhood in Atlanta. And it's called the East Lake Revitalization Project. And Tom Cousins is the one who funded it originally, and then Warren Buffett and some other people have gotten behind this to help fund the purpose-built schools part. But it's also, again, they won't get involved unless it's a community effort and unless the community approves of it and is involved in it and our stakeholders in it. Now, the East Lake, we drove all around the neighborhood in addition to going into the school. The school was excellent. You can tell that they have their heart in it. It was, a lot of hands-on learning. We visited lots of classrooms. We also went to the adjacent YMCA, which you just open the door from the school and you walk into the YMCA, and there's a part where the kids are, and then there's the part where the adults from the community are there exercising and so forth. So they really bring the community into the school. And then we went right next door to the pre-K early childhood part where everybody was bringing their kids into, and so it was just really a powerful example of what can be done. The housing is half government subsidized and half market rate housing. So it's a very mixed, didn't used to be, but it now is a mixed income community. This past year, 100% of their 12th graders that started 18 years ago graduated, and all of them were accepted into a college. Almost all African American and a lot of boys. Now, the school is becoming more and more integrated as they bring in more socioeconomic mix into the school. So the pre-K and the kindergarten looked different than the seniors did. But you could see the progression of the socioeconomic integration at that school was really powerful, and now it's a very prestigious school to get into. There's a waiting list, that sort of thing, and so it just gave us a vision of what's possible. And it's exciting that we might have a project like this in Tallahassee. So I do hope that, we can embrace this and see how we can fit in, and also, of course, that's going to require the whole community. So I just wanted to give you a report on that because it was a pretty exciting visit, and I certainly enjoyed hanging out with my colleagues too.
Wonderful. Madam Chair.
Ms. Boyd?
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Woods, for that report. I was very much interested in knowing more about that particular school and that entity when we attended the conference over in Amelia Island.
Right.
Together, all five of us board members attended, and I thought, well, how in the world they do that? And so it would be great if we could perhaps have that kind of project here. So I guess with your traveling partners, are you able to tell now what that means for Leon County? What's the bottom line? What do we need to do? Anything, or are we just presenting it right now? Do we move it from this board to the city, or?
I don't think there's anything for us to do right this minute, but I think, everyone's going to be in contact with the superintendent and with the board to see how we can be a part of this. And there's some things they're going to want us to agree to so that they can be involved, and we just have to look at that checklist and see which of those things we're willing to check and which ones we can check. And so it's sort of all moving together at one time. Whole Child Leon's very involved with the pre-K part of it, and of course the city and the county and the Housing Development Authority. So I think it's going to still take a while. I could see it's a long-term project, but it has potential to solve some problems that we have not been able to solve in Tallahassee. So I'm excited about it.
Good. Partnership and buy-in. I'm hearing lots of that.
Yeah, the revitalization of Orange Avenue apartments. It's a big piece and a big step.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for the report. So very good. Okay, let's see, where are we?
We're done.
Okay, 24. New issues from board members?
That was Ms. Wood reporting.
Okay, that was
I
it
move
then.
we adjourn.
All right. Meeting's adjourned.